On this episode of Arte Agave, we are going to interview TK. She's an entrepreneur from Austin, Texas. Las Ofrendas. You can follow her on Instagram. She's got accessories. She puts all together all these pop-up markets. And then there's Frida Friday. So this is a event that she runs on a weekly basis, all based around LGBTQIA inclusion. And she's having a lot of fun. She's very busy. And it's going to be super interesting to find out how she does all this down in Austin, Texas, what her background is, and what's next for Frida Fridays. Stay tuned. Arte Agave podcast. I'm here with TK. TK, even before you introduce yourself, I've been following you on Instagram, and you seem to be very, very busy with a lot of stuff. And it took us a few times to get this podcast even going. What's happening down in Austin, and what is it like to be you for a week down in that city?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, thank you for being so patient with me, getting me on here. I am pretty busy right now. I do run my own brand, and I started it as an artist, and so it was a passion project for a really long time, is the point of me saying that. It wasn't a formalized brand. That's a new thing.
Yeah.
Fairly new thing within the last 2 years. And I also do a ton of event production. One of the things that I do is a project called Frida Friday ATX, and we are a local BIPOC and queer-centered marketplace, and we have been existing for about 5 years. So most of my time is split pretty evenly between producing. I still produce all of my own work. I'm an earring maker. I do flower crowns. I do graphic design. I still am the person that creates it all. So running that part of my brand, and then also doing the event production or the cultural organizing work behind Frida Friday. And I have a small team. Some of them are new. And so this year has been particularly I think a big growth spurt for us, because we're learning, I am learning how to give people parts of my baby and trust that they're going to do a good job with it.
Very, very hard to delegate when you've started something, isn't it?
It's so hard. I
Yeah.
want to know how you're doing it. I'm so interested in
It took me a very long time. You know what it took? It took me, I was for one of our, I think it was our second Arte Agave event. I was having some back issues. I was one of those people. I was a bartender for 20 years. I'm a very manual labor, hands-on kind of guy. And I was having such back problems that before the event, I collapsed. And I laid on the floor for about 3 hours while my team was trying to set up around me. And I thought to myself, I can't keep living life like this, because I was doing everything at once. I was not delegating anything. And I saw the writing on the wall. I was like, okay, this is going to be my future. Bad back guy who's not gonna be able to do anything. So I learned the hard way by collapsing on the floor in agony because I would not delegate all my stuff to other people.
Yeah, and it's funny how the universe does that, right? Like the universe puts you at a full halt and
Yep.
makes you pay attention to what's going on. Because I didn't have a back thing, but I did get COVID at the end of last year. And it
Yeah.
was kind of it was kind of like a and the most apropos time I could have ever gotten it, because it was after we ran our last event of the year. And so I was just getting ready to take a short Christmas vacation and take a little time off in January, and I got COVID instead. And it was like the universe was like, hey, like full halt, like what are you going to do right now? Because you can't go through another year experiencing the kind of burnout that I had been experiencing all year long. I'm sure these last 2 years have been just so challenging as a creative, I'm an independent creative. I'd love to hear more about like your experience with that. But as somebody who's been producing shows, like we didn't know what to expect when we went into COVID,
Yeah.
and so we just kind of hit the road, like hit the ground running in terms of trying to pivot and figure out what we were going to do. And that didn't stop when people stopped shuttering in place. It just grew larger, So that was the first time I really stopped since like March of 2019.
Yeah. And it's good to it's good to listen to that, because some people don't, and they just keep going, they keep going. And what I've learned over the time is just taking a break. Sometimes because people will be like, you got to hustle, 5 hours of sleep, da, 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 da. And it's kind of like that, especially in the beginning for a business, because you're just running and running and running. But like for me, what I've learned is when I do take those breaks, it's not really a break. I get more creative, right? So I get time to not think about the day to day and all the little things, but I'm just sit back and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this is an idea. Or you read a book, or you listen to a podcast, or you listen to somebody else, and then you get that spark, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, here's a few more ideas. So I almost look forward to the break, just because it's going to give me creativity to go forward for the next 3, 6, 12 months.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, like I said, I started Las Ofrendas actually like as an artist and as a creative, and I had a lot of time to travel. That's what kind of spurred me to start my work to begin with, was
Yeah.
like that ability to be engaged with different thoughts and see different. I traveled all across the United States. I traveled into
Cool.
Mexico. I actually like went to one of the campesinos outside of Puebla, and I saw the mercado there, the market, and I was really inspired by the kind of economy that I saw
Mm.
the community there building with each other,
Mm.
and how important it was to the actual like fiber of the community, because it was like moms with their babies, like the whole family was engaged with how they were creating like commerce together,
Mm.
right? And then also just sharing their like, you know, produce and like handmade wares, and like really it was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience, and it really inspired me to come back to the US and think about how do we create community here, and also how do we create economic spaces for women and people to support their families. So that was like definitely a really great example of taking that time, and how far, I mean, that was probably a decade ago, how
Wow.
far that's carried me in my work, and what my vision was. And now I think I'm at a new level
Yeah.
of where I'm at. Like I said, I started Las Ofrendas about a decade ago.
Yeah. And now, so Las Ofrendas is your business, your accessories and everything that you make, or is it more of the market kind of thing? Because I know you have a
Yes,
few
yes,
layers of who you are. Yeah. So what
absolutely.
exactly is Las
My
Ofrendas?
friend just explained it to me. She was like, "You're a triangle." And I was like, "Okay, Las Ofrendas is the tip of the triangle. It's
Hmm.
the main parent company,
Yep.
technically, legally also, right?"
Right.
And then off of that is my brand, Las Ofrendas, the like earrings,
Hmm.
jewelry, all of the creative work. And then Frida Friday, which is my marketplace, my event production. And then I throw a queer people of color dance party too called Fuego, which I do with a creative partner of mine locally here, but still
Mm.
underneath that triangle space. Um,
Got it. So,
so
so
yeah,
and so so Frida Friday is the more of the marketplace.
yes.
Um, got it. Got it. And what does that entail? So what was the goal with that? It was just to bring like-minded people together, and kind of like you just described, of like the family and showcasing entrepreneurship and who you are and community. Was that sort of the goal for that?
Yes, except for with a focus on women of color.
Mm.
I had moved back to Austin from San Antonio. I moved to Austin 12 years ago, I think, and then I moved to San Antonio. And then I moved back to Austin for love, and I wanted to find, I was like, here I am, I'm back again. What can I do that's new and
Yeah.
exciting? And I wanted to find a community of women of color makers. And
Mm.
so I started Frida Friday, which was intended to be a once a month community space for 14 women. I remember
Yep.
we were like, so graciously hosted by one of our local restaurants here, and they had their whole backyard was on a hill. And so we would all set up the women, and I'm sure as an event producer, like it's like impossible. Like we're on a little hill, everybody's got their little tables, and I would only give them. We only had space to have 4-foot table spaces, so it was not
Yeah.
a big space, and everybody made it work because we just wanted to be in community with each other.
Yep.
And it was a very, very precious moment for us.
Mm.
Like it was something that I'm sure you know, I think you look like you're around my age, and so I'm sure you look back now and you say, "Oh, there was these moments in my life that were just so precious,"
Yeah.
and, like, I think I have a more keen awareness now to
Yeah.
be in that moment and appreciate what that moment is. When I was younger, I would just kinda, just steamroll through it, and try to get whatever I'm getting done,
Yep.
and now I kinda try to take a moment and, remove myself and really look at, wow, this is something I wanna remember, this
Yep.
feeling, and that feeling was so beautiful and powerful and exciting, and we were the very first marketplace in Austin to create a woman of color centered space.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was really powerful, but, kind of fast forward about 2.5 years, into that, I'm a queer woman, and I, took a look around myself, and I felt very much like I need to be in a queer space. I need
Mm.
to talk about my queerness, especially in Texas,
Yeah.
um, which
Especially
yeah,
especially Texas, right?
yeah, 'cause Texas is such an interesting space, right? Legally, there's just so much, such a pushback
Mm.
on, our communities, and so, I wanted to be open and honest about,
Yeah.
this is who I am, and I wanna create this space for, our communities, and so we still continue to be very BIPOC centered, but I definitely talk a lot and do a lot of work around creating intersectional spaces, and there is obviously a certain amount of that is, politicized, but for
Mm.
the most part, it's also really just about creating community and supporting community and enjoying community.
Yeah.
Because I think to me, that's the most healing thing that you can do is tell people, "Hey, it's okay to bring your whole self and be
Right.
your whole self in any space that you're in."
Mm.
So that's what's driven our it's a market.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a vibe, it's a whole little, experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Bringing like-minded people together. Can you explain BIPOC to me?
BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. So I myself am Mayan. I'm from Guatemala. Um, and it's obviously a movement right now
Mm.
that's very front and center in the US, I think, especially during COVID, through the Black Lives Matter movement, really centered the need to support BIPOC people and Black
Mm.
people in the work that we do. And as somebody who's doing cultural event programming in Austin, it is very important to me that we create spaces with equity. And
Yeah.
so that's what the intersectional movement has been about for me.
Wow. Very cool. Thanks for kind of laying that out. So where so you started Las Ofrendas, obviously the parent company, you're doing all, your stuff. You moved back to Austin. And then when did these parties you said that are going on, and what's the name of the parties again?
Fuego,
Oh,
Fuego.
Fuego. Okay.
Mhm.
So Fuego, and you said that it's still a monthly party, or is this like now
We're
a
actually
weekly
taking
thing?
a break right now.
Okay.
So, because of COVID, when I came back from COVID, I was like, I need a break. I need a full break. So it seems like it's funny because I'm very busy, but I'm very busy producing right now, like my own art, like making jewelry and making like I'm
Yeah.
very focused on that right now as opposed to producing events right now. So we do have several events, but I am taking a break from Fuego. And one of the things that we have started to do this year, which I've really enjoyed, is we're kind of, I think, going back to this original idea of creating community.
Mm.
And so we've been doing a lot of conversations
Mm.
during our marketplaces. And it's been so beautiful. It's been such a beautiful experience that I want to do them every single market. I have to reel myself in and be like, no, you can't organize that this month. But it's a really substantial, I think, place for people to get to know each other, kind of like this podcast, right? We're
Yeah.
getting to know each other. And so we're creating this event within our event.
Mm.
And it's been really, really beautiful because I think one of the things that I'm very grateful for in Austin is that Austin has really supported Frida Friday. And as a result, Austin has really supported me, Las
Cool.
Ofrendas TK, right?
Yep.
Um, and but And I'm sure, I mean, I'd be very interested in how you experienced this during Art Agave. I had such a great time at your event. Like,
Good, good.
it was one of my favorite events of the year, last year. Like,
Yes.
I mean, and when I say that, I mean like top 5, like probably
Okay.
top 3. It was so fun.
Awesome.
And so, but with that said, like, we try to create these spaces of joy too. And then
Mhm.
we notice, like, our community comes every month, but we don't always get a chance to get to know each other. So
Right.
this is kind of like a space for people to get to know each other and to continue those relationships, because I personally really feel like those relationships are what will carry you through,
Yeah.
as a person, but also as a community member and as a leader and as a business owner. And that's what's important, right? Is those relationships. And um, so I've been focused a little bit more on those this year,
Yeah.
and it's been different than what I've been doing. But it's going really well and I'm really enjoying it.
So how did you said you're having these kind of communities within the event? What do they look like? Are they like a keynote kind of talk? Is it a roundtable sort of thing, or how does it work inside the event?
Yeah, so we're doing each one looks different.
Hmm.
We've done basically one a month now for since January. The first one was created because a traveling artist was coming here, a really well known Latina brand coming from LA. Was like, hey, I'm coming to Austin and I want to do a pop-up. And I said, okay, you can like come. Obviously, we want to host you. We want you here. We want you to feel welcome. And let's do a panel with
Hmm.
you. So that was like a panel, and then the market, and then her pop-up was during the market. Then the second time we did it, it was more of a conversation piece, which happened again during the event itself. This third time that we've done it, so this is March now, we're going into, it was a panel
Hmm.
during the event with local community creatives. Um, and again, one of the traveling visit artists from Mexico, Coyoacan, and LA was here for the weekend. And so she said, I want to come. And she writes a lot about her life as a Latina, and also as a queer Latina. And so we called it Diary of a Queer Life.
Hmm.
And we brought in some drag performers and local organizers, some local producers, and just talked to them about like what has it been like to create in the city. And it was really beautiful. Like, it was
Yeah.
a really, really sweet moment for our entire community to come together. And then the market is going on around it.
Wow.
And we've been really fortunate to have these beautiful venues we work with that are able to kind of by chance, like, give us a space within the space, have the structure to do that. And so, yeah, and the next one that we're gonna do will be in May. And it will be, we're doing a 3-part series. The first part, I don't know if you know the word Hefa. Have you ever heard of that word?
From your Instagram, I've been I do now, or I have heard. Yeah, yeah. I've been following you all week on everything, reading everything about you. So yeah,
Thank you. Well, it means like, technically it means boss, like
yeah,
you're a boss, right?
yep.
And it was like there's a national Jefa Day that was started by Hija de tu Madre, excuse me, who's an LA-based artist, who was the first person to come here in January, actually.
Wow,
And so that National Jefa Day was yesterday, and we started a Jefa committee brunch.
cool.
And so they're organizing the programming. So the first programming will be May 1st. And it will be a conversation, but it will also be really focused on like what does it mean to be empowered in your own life. Like,
Hmm.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of the hustle mentality, and
Yeah,
like how I'm sure as an entrepreneur, like you said, you just went through it with your back, like you're just pushed so hard to like achieve. And I
yeah.
know I've had moments in my life where I'm like, I don't even really know what success is anymore.
Mm,
Like I don't
mm.
even really know like how I remember a good friend of mine who's also a therapist, and I'm always like, stop there trying to therapize me. She was like, how are you gonna know when you're successful? You
Yeah,
know? And I don't actually know that I know the answer to that right now. I know that I've been told these are the things that are considered part of your success, here's a
yeah.
check.
I think it's part of your success, but one of the things that you know, because once you're an entrepreneur and you move, you know, things are moving forward, you know, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you don't even realize the growth sometimes. I had a moment about 6 months ago. It was, well, about 4 months ago, we were done with our events and I was like home, and, you know, things looked good from the year. We did some very successful events, really good feedback. And, you know, to me, I was just like, I'm not where I want to be yet. I'm not successful. I'm not. But then I'm like, wait a minute, Walt, take a look at what you started, you know, 8 years ago, where you were. Your back was out. You didn't sleep. You know, now you're home, working from home with your wife and your kids. And like, you know, so it's, I don't know if you always have to stop with success. To me, people are like, oh, when are you ever going to, like, people ask me, well, when are you going to stop? And I'm like, do I have to stop? Like, do I ever have to stop? I want to always keep improving. I always want to keep growing, and whether that be with this business or another business. So I think success is just taking a moment to stop and look at the past and say, oh, okay, I've come so far and I've created such a thing. Like, to me, that's kind of success, but I don't ever want to stop either. I don't know if that's a crazy mentality, but I always want to keep improving myself personally and my family and my business, etc.
I don't think it's a crazy mentality because I feel the same way, but I
Okay,
mean,
good.
I also question myself, like, is that a crazy mentality for myself? Because you know, so to tell the little story of Las Ofrendas, I was, you know, DBA for so long and really was this like kind of like free spirit artist, like making these earrings. I always tell this story about like how I would sell the earrings, kind of like open up my like coat and be like, here's your here's your earring selection in the bathroom of a club or something. Like when I saw women that didn't have earrings on, like that was really like my start, you know? And
That's awesome.
it was like I had a really great time. I mean, it was more like my purse, like, here, let me pull out my earrings, but
Yep.
it was very informal and it was very just about like I guess getting my little bit of art out into the world and
Mm.
also like you know, just kind of like making a buck to be able to travel, you
Yeah.
know, there's that part to it too, you know, and I
Mhm.
think um it wasn't until November of 2019, so right before COVID, 4 months before COVID, that I decided that I was gonna formalize an LLC
Cool.
for Las Ofrendas, and um and once that happened, and I bet you probably can talk about this too, once that happened, then I was like, "Oh my god, I have a business."
Mm.
Like, this is a business, right? Like, now I have to, like, pay attention to what I'm doing in a very different way than I was
Yep.
taking it
Yeah.
before. Um, and that, I think, kind of put in the, like, the ball rolling for what has happened over the last 2 years. But I remember at that time, people asking me, like, "Oh, do you have an exit strategy?" Like, "Do you have a business plan with an exit strategy?" And I was like, "No, because this is my life." Like,
I'm just trying to get through the first 3 months, first of all. Never
yeah.
mind the exit strategy.
Like, what do you mean? And like I don't think it's crazy to be like, oh, I'm not going to an end. I'm going through a process, you
Mm.
know, like
Yeah.
this is a process and I'm growing as a human in it and I'm redefining what success looks like. And I'm redefining now this year, in the last year, I have a daughter. She'll kill me if I can't remember, but I think she's 29 years old. I think she might be 28, but she's taking over my business. I'm teaching her how to take over my business, and
Very
so
cool.
we're creating a multi-generational business, which is something I never thought would happen.
Mm.
And I'm learning from that process. And I'm also trying to create a structure for her that allows her to have the creative space that I never had.
Mm.
Right. Like once you're in that business mode, you're like, okay, I got to deal with the actual business of being an artist and being
Yep.
a creative. And I don't love that part, but I do it. I don't love it.
Well, that's because you're a creative. You just wanna create, you know? I'm the same way. I'm like, invoice, contract, logistic. I'm like, I can't stand that stuff, but it does get you to a point where you're like, "Okay, I've gotta at least learn it." And then you do get to a point where like, "Okay, I understand it so much, now I can designate it to some other people." So I get it, but I'm like you. I'm like, I just wanna do the fun stuff and create and things that I love doing, not the
And
paperwork.
you should be able to too, right? Like like that's what got you where you're at, and that's what makes what you do successful, and so you should be able to have that space, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, and I do. I just again at the same time, like you will know this too. It's just it's your business. So if it fails, it's your fault. If this is wrong, it's your fault. Like no matter what happens at my event, if this happened or someone did this, or it's all my fault. Um, so you got to take that responsibility across the board. So I do enjoy my moments, and I do enjoy. I do have a wonderful team who you've met some of them. But at the end of the day, if it goes wrong, it's not their fault. It's just all on me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel you. I hear you on that. It's a lot to hold. And
Mm,
I think I'm personally reassessing, like, what do I want to put my energy into and what
yeah.
do I want to take responsibility for, right? Um, so I have some news, which I'm
Oh,
actually like, yeah, I'm like, oh, well, I mean, I guess I'll just share it. So all this time I've been growing this business. I've been doing these micro business like markets, right? Is
yep.
basically what they are. And that's Frida Friday. And Frida Friday, I feel like is kind of like it's like the cake of my business. Like, I'm like, "Here, come take a slice. Like, I wanna share this
Mm,
with you. It's super pretty, it's super fun." Like, it's like and it's funny because, like, in that, I still have this brand, and Las
yep.
Ofrendas is my brand, right? And so, yesterday, I learned that Las Ofrendas was nominated for the Austin Best Jeweler Award through the Austin Chronicle, which I've never been nominated for before, and it didn't even occur to me. Frida Friday has been nominated and won several
Mm,
times, right? It
cool.
never occurred to me to be like, oh, like my little art brand, my little
Right.
earring brand, like also like could receive this notoriety.
Wow.
And it really made me think, and it's so funny because I'm big into being like, you manifest what you put into the world, right? And so
100%.
be intentional about what you're doing. You don't know
Yep.
what the path is going to be that's going to get you there, but if you hold a certain intention, that's where your energy is going to go. That's where the magic's going to happen. And so this year my energy, because I'm handing this business, I'm preparing it to hand it over to my daughter, right? I was like, I really want to focus on Las Ofrendas. I really want to focus on my creative brand. And it's a perfect year. Like, it's such an apropos moment to have Las Ofrendas be nominated. And so it's a very prideful, like, I feel very proud of it.
And you should, and congratulations for that. But that's what we were talking about. It's these moments right now where you can say, okay, this is success. This is success. But for you, you're like, I bet, and me even talking to you and getting to know you, in 2 weeks from now, you're gonna be like, well, what's the next thing? You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna stop. Right. You're gonna keep going. And that's what makes a great entrepreneur. And that's what's gonna make you super successful is that you recognize this one moment, you're like, cool, let's celebrate it. But onto the next thing. So how do you, when you're doing these events, I mean, you created a company, how are you financially supporting yourself? Is it through Las Ofrendas and selling your goods? Is it you're making any money with these pop-ups? You seem to be doing a lot of stuff for the community. Is anything coming back to you financially so you can continue to live your life and do these wonderful things that you're doing?
Well, yeah, of course, right? Like, I think we've actually seen the business grow 4 times from where we
Cool.
started at the beginning of COVID, which is astounding to me. Like, we never anticipated it. I never anticipated it growing that as quickly. If anything, um, I think it's like now I'm like, okay, how do I build my team?
Mm,
Like, what do I need to do to get my team going? So
yeah.
that we can continue to have the kind of financial success that we're seeing right now. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think in terms of giving to the community, I feel like this. I feel like what you give always comes back to you tenfold.
Yeah.
And so if you create these spaces, for example, with this market where we are giving to the community an opportunity for their own financial success, that's going to come back to us, right? That's why we commit an entire, 2 and 3 people usually are working on those events a month, including myself, right? It's a pretty substantial part of what we're doing in order to be able to continue that impact. And I don't think it's a one-sided deal. I think it's it's a reciprocal relationship, you know? And so it's very symbiotic is what I'm saying. And that I mean that across the board. I mean that creatively, I mean that financially, I mean that like just in terms of building community itself, you know, it's really lovely to see people grow around you and to know that you did play a little part in that, you know, and whatever that part may be, you know,
Mm.
and that they played a little part in your story too.
Yeah. So how did you become, I mean, who you are today? You seem to be very entrepreneurial. You've had a smile on your face for the last 30 minutes that we're talking to each other. What was your, you know, what was your life growing up? Where, you know, your family, tell me about where are you from and how is life growing up being you?
I was actually I was born in Guatemala, in
Okay.
Guatemala City, and I was adopted there. My parents were
Mm.
missionaries, so a very mixed family history. Um, and I came to the US when I was 8 years old, and we moved to Boston, Massachusetts.
Wow.
My dad was a first generation Armenian family, and my mom was French and Cajun and from Houston originally. And so
Quite the
we
mix.
Yes, we grew up in a I grew up in a very, very diverse home. Like my dad and my great aunt, who was like my grandmother, would be speaking Armenian, and my
Wow.
mom would be speaking French. And just
Jeez.
at the end of the day, I remember looking back. Once I moved to Texas, I was like, "Oh my God, I grew up in a Texan household." Like at the end of the day, I was like, "Oh, this woman is a Texan," you know, and
Yeah.
I don't know how much time you've spent in Texas, but there is a very distinct like Texas forever spirit. I think
Yeah.
the people
Yeah.
that are from Texas, you know.
Yep.
Um, and so I think it really informed me. It made me very curious
Hmm.
about the world and people and cultures and like diversity. And I think so much of my work is identity based work. And I think that's kind of why, because I saw how impactful cultures were within my own family, you know,
Hmm.
and how important, for example, even my mom, right? Like she couldn't wait to come back home to be in Texas when she was in Massachusetts because she like missed and longed that sense of belonging, you know?
Yep.
So for me, it's interesting because I think I'm always kind of like, how do we create a sense of like belonging for people, right?
Yeah.
Um, but and with that said, I was 16 years old and I had a baby. I was a teen mom.
Hmm.
And I had two children by the time I was 18 years old. And I'm a survivor of domestic violence. We were homeless for a period in our lives. We went through a lot of financial struggle. Um, and I don't like it's kind of
How old were you when you were homeless?
17. I was 17 from the time that I was 17 to the time that I was 19.
And you had a kid
I had 2 children. I
and
had
you were
2 children,
homeless.
and I was homeless, yeah, we lived in a shelter for 2 years. I don't talk about it a lot because people always are, like, shocked by
Yeah.
it, but it was a definite, I think, anchor in terms of my, perspective on justice
Mm.
and why I think it's so important to create equity in the work that you do.
Yeah.
Um, and I saw and still have to this day close friendships with some of the women who I was in the shelter with. And the resilience of moms, teen moms, single moms, um, is mind blowing to me. It's
Mm.
something that like, you know, I think a lot of times like young mothers are really critiqued and not supported. And it's like, as I grew older, I remember looking around me and realizing I did a lot of youth work too. I was a community organizer. Like my background is really in justice work, social justice
Wow.
work. Um, and I would see a lot of these teen moms, they would get messages like, "Oh, prevent teen pregnancy or stop teen pregnancy." And I'm not currently advocating for teen pregnancy right now, but I am saying that like people should feel like they're supported in their life choices. And it was something that I really felt like, can you imagine growing up? And I don't remember feeling this, right? I
Mm.
don't remember experiencing this, but I think it's because I had a really great support system. Like, even though I was going through such a hard moment and I was living in a shelter, I was experiencing houselessness, um, I had amazing mentors.
Wow.
And I don't know if you've ever had an amazing mentor. It is absolutely life changing.
Yeah.
Like, it is one of the most important things that you can have when you are in crisis or you are
Yeah.
in a hard position. And so I still have a really great relationship with the mentor that I had when I was a teenager. And she actually, my name is actually Tanya Karakashian Tunches, but she was like, I'm gonna call you TK. And then that's the reason that I go
Wow.
by TK to this day, so it's been 30 years or something.
Yeah.
So really, really impactful, an amazing woman, and I think that moment in my life
Hmm.
really, like I said, really anchored who I have been for the last portion of my life. And I think about that a lot in Austin now. I look at the city and I'm like, well, we're really moving really fast. I'm sure
Yeah. Yeah.
we are growing so quickly. So many people are
Half of
being.
California went to Austin.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, it's wild. Just like I will go downtown and I'll be like, wait, this building was not here last week. Like
Yeah.
it is an entire experience. And
Yeah.
there's very exciting portions to it. Like
Right.
there's a lot of creativity in this city. And then there's very kind of like heartbreaking portions to it where like you see which communities have been displaced and you want to support. I want to support those communities to continue to feel like this is your home, like you belong here.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's the kind of like background to who I
Yeah.
am.
I mean, do you think if you didn't have that mentor or some of the women you met, I mean, do you think you would have turned out differently? Like what's.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. My mentor that I'm telling you about, she was a longtime community organizer in Boston.
Mm.
If you've ever been there, like she did a lot of work in DV. She did a lot of work with HIV positive people.
Okay.
She did a lot of like health related work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you ever went through any kind of circumstance like that, like it never ceases to amaze me. I'll meet people years later and they'll be like, oh, when I was in Boston, I had this particular struggle and it was something related to those fields. And they will always name drop her. They'll be like, oh
Mm.
yeah, I met her, you know, and she really provided this support for me during this moment in my life.
Wow.
Which of course, like as somebody who was her mentee, I feel like it was just me.
Right.
Like she had her eyes on me, but for
She was that good that you felt that special, even though she was doing that for hundreds or thousands of other people.
yes, exactly. And so she was the reason that I ended up leaving Boston and going to college because she
Wow.
saw the road I was on, and she told me, you can't end up in a situation like I'm in, and she was maybe in her 40s at that time, and she was kind of capping out at her jobs because she didn't have a degree,
Wow.
which is crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. The life experience she had was phenomenal, right? But she didn't have a degree. And so she really pushed me and was like, if you like literally was like, if you want to have a relationship with me, you have to go to college.
Mm.
And I can't continue my relationship with you if you won't go to college. And so of course I was like, oh, like heartbroken at the idea of not having her in my life.
Right.
And so I started applying for colleges and I ended up going to college because of her.
Wow.
And I really credit her with that moment of my life because I think she gave me an out
Mm.
the situation I was in that wasn't really going anywhere, and she took me to that next level of growth, and it changed my life forever, like, it literally moved me to a different part of the state, it, put my children in new school systems, it really gave me also kind of a break because we ended up moving to Western Massachusetts. And so I went to school. I think you're in New York, yeah?
I'm currently in Northern Virginia. I'm right outside of DC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I went to school. I applied to Smith. I didn't get in.
Okay.
I went to Hampshire College in New York in Western
Okay.
Massachusetts. And Hampshire definitely was, I don't know how much you know about that school, but
No.
it's like a create your own major, like
Cool.
so it was like I felt like
My kind of school.
yes, it was like my entrepreneurial training.
Mm.
Like it like made me figure out what I like to give me the skills of what I could do, and
Yeah.
uh it was definitely, it's funny because my degree is in cultural identity studies and communications, but what I do, I think was taught through that experience, you know?
Mm. Yeah, and when did you mentioned that you're queer. When did that come into your head, or what was the
My
did you
whole
al
life, it was my whole life.
did you always know? I didn't know if there was like a at
I
age 4, I realized something's a little different, or was there a moment of like, things are a little different for me than other
You
people?
know, it's so funny. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday about this. And I definitely remember in grade school, like having a friendship with a girl that, and I look back and I was like, oh, I had a crush on her. Like, I
Mm,
didn't know that that is what was happening. I
right.
thought, like, but she was like super like sporty and like a very sporty girl, and I was not at all. So there was like I was like, why am I so interested in you? You
Mm,
know, like, but I was so young. It was
yeah,
not like, it was just
didn't
like a moment of me realizing like, oh, there's this like person that I can't figure out. Are we friends? What's going on? You know? And
mm,
I was little. Like I think I was like 9, you
yeah,
know? And
yeah,
then, I came out felt like relatively young. I came out by the time that I was, like, 19.
okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned about, young parents and mentorship, and I think that's really interesting, kind of what you're doing now. It's like you've gone through all this stuff, throughout your whole entire life, and now, it's really cool that you're the one giving back. You're the one that's creating that community, because I think you're right. It's like, you can, whatever, teen mom who, but like, you gotta support the community. You got to support us. Like, I think, even today there's so much polarization of left versus right, or this versus that. It's like, I love team us, team human, team, you know what I mean? It's like, if to me, it's like, if one of us is hurting, we need to help. We need to support. We can't make fun. We can't blame them or their circumstance or this circumstance. It's like, you got to take our resources and start putting it to where it needs to belong. And that's taking care of all of us as humans. And I think if we start doing that, it's just going to raise us and raise our country. So I think it's great that you're taking everything that you've done in your life and putting it back into the community, because I think we need more and more of that. And I wanted to ask you too, and I mentioned financially of like how you're doing, because I was wondering if, like, do you get any local sponsorships? Is there any local brands or other companies that are supporting you? Are you looking for sponsors? I'd like this just to see how can people get involved with everything that you're doing down in Austin, and how can we all help?
We are always looking for sponsors. I'm like, yes, yes, 100%. Um, and we have a ton of really great relationships as well with our sponsors, and it's really been, it's about reciprocation. Like, I
Mm,
really also saw that at Agave, at our Agave, like, it was so beautiful to see the tequila, ambassadors there, and they were, like, so excited to be there and, like, share about their brands, and, like, at the same time, that obviously you're shining a light on them as well. There's a reciprocal relationship happening there. Um, and so it's very similar to what we do here with Frida
yeah.
Friday. Like, we have sponsorships, and their relationships, their friendships. They're like, okay, great. Like, if you have something coming up and you want us to be involved, we want to be able to like be there and support. And also, like, we have a ton of programming going on that we always need support around. So
Mm.
yes, 100%, we are always looking for sponsors. And it's just about figuring out the right fits and figuring out how we can be reciprocal with what we do.
Awesome. Yeah. And I appreciate all your kind words for Arte Agave. When we started this, one of our goals was, I was a bartender for about 20 years in New York, and I saw the writing on the wall with a lot of people just trying to learn about tequila and mezcal. And I wanted to create like a space that was just beyond tequila and mezcal, but it was really something that wasn't just another like salt lime an American disaster party. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want it to turn into that. So for us, it's always been important for us to reach out to people like yourself, and everyone that you saw at Arte Agave and said, hey, we want you to be there, use our platform, but also let us know what we should be doing. Let us know how we should be doing it and why we should be doing it. And I think that's really important at events and experiences, because sometimes you just get like an event producer that just is like, I want to throw a party, I want to make money, whatever. And there's no longevity to that. Like I said, we've been doing it for 10 years. We started in New York, but one of the reasons we've been successful at it is just because we ask those questions of people who are literally in the culture, in the community, and saying, hey, what is next year? And you know this, it's like you're only as good as your last event. So, everyone's like, oh, that was cool. And my team is always like, cool, we're going to duplicate it again. I'm like, we'll duplicate some, but now we've got to take it to another level. It's taken to another level. And it's also growing the community the right way and listening. I'm not from Austin. I'm not Mexican. But if you didn't know, but it's taking those moments to stop and to ask those questions and to say, what is important to the community? What should we be doing right now? It's not my community. I just love to create this space. So it's I guess very similar to what you're doing. And I love what you're doing. I love it. I hope it really continues to expand. Because I feel like not just in this community, but us, in general, we need more spaces like this that are just, inclusive to some people and welcoming to everybody. And it gives everyone a chance to learn who that other person is and why they are the way they are and why they're doing what they're doing. And I just think sometimes there's just not enough discourse between 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, 7 people, just to understand who they are. So I don't know. I think the spaces and the events that we're doing are helping to create that. So like I said, I asked if we can get some sponsorships because I'd love to throw some more eyeballs at what you're doing and grow it in the right way.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Like, it really means so much to me. And I mean, I think what you're saying, it was evident in that space that you created, and your team. I remember at the end of the day, looking around and being like, wow, this team is strong. It's really awesome. I was so impressed by that. That was a kind of like lesson to me last year. So thank you for providing that. Probably without even knowing it, but like for me, I was like, wow, I was really impressed by the execution of the event, but also just the joy that was generated in that space. And to me, I feel like that is really what matters, is like
Yeah.
experiencing that joy, creating spaces for joy. Maya Angelou, her quote, she says, people always remember how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I really think that is true. I think if we lead with that in what we do in the world, and I'm very flawed, right? Like,
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur is not easy. There's a lot of moments where I'm like, I am not doing this well. I am not making myself feel well or other people feel well. Like, I have to work on that. You know what I mean? It's an effort for me.
Yeah.
But with that said, like, I think that when we create, especially spaces, we have to keep that at the forefront of what we're doing, and give that to people. Like, give
Yeah.
them the opportunity to enjoy themselves. And that's
Yeah.
something that I feel proud to be able to know that, we do work on consistently, and that I saw also you work on really consistently.
Thank you. And we, I always give credit, to people like yourselves. Like the event is, again, we create the space, but it's everyone that comes in and does it. And that's the one thing that I realized. The first Arte Agave we did, we we do other events. We do some whiskey events, and they're very cool. And but like the first Arte Agave we did, I was like, oh, this is such a different vibe. It's more family. And a lot of people who were representing the brands were Mexican. They were from, Mexico, and there was a different level of pride in the room compared to like other events that we do where someone's just representing a brand. And I was like, oh, this is such a different level. And I always wanted to keep that. I was like, I don't want to lose this pride in this family. So I was like, I now have a responsibility to do this event the right way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be just another sponsored get drunk kind of party.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have to agree with you on that, because I'm a big tequila drinker, and I'm just kind of learning about mezcal. I really enjoy it, but I don't know enough about it. And it's really cool. We could do a whole other podcast on this, because it's so cool to learn about the actual process of making
Mm-hmm.
tequila and what people put into that in the different regions, and like the
Yeah.
way that like, what is tequila and why is it tequila, and where, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
why does it have to come from this specific place? And what is the, like, I totally nerd out on like
Yeah.
that kind of, but it's because people who represent tequila, in my experience, I agree with you, have really like have a lot of pride around it. Like have a lot of like uh cultural pride around what
Mhm.
they're doing, and that is very cool to me. Like I am fascinated by
Yeah,
it.
and that's how I kind of fell in love with this category too, because I just liked tequila back in the day, and like it made me feel good. But as
Mhm.
I started to learn, I was like, oh wow, there is the highlands and the lowlands. And then you're like, wait, the agave plant is 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. You're waiting 15 years to make
Yeah.
this thing. I was like, oh, I don't think people understood the complexity of tequila and mezcal until they start to see it and they start to learn about these farmers and the people down in Mexico. And you're like, wow, okay, this is not just a neutral grain distilled something that could be done in 6 months. This is taking a decade to
Yeah.
make this tequila. So yeah, it's been a fun journey for us, and we're excited to continue in this. The category is going through the roof. I think it's number 2 in sales behind bourbon in America. And I think in New York City, it's the number 1 selling spirit all in all of New York.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool to hear.
Yeah. It's nonstop in the agave category. Um, so what else is going on in Austin before I let you go? What else is happening down in Austin? I mean, I know Austin has always been sort of this kind of event and music scene. I don't know how COVID hit it pretty good, but when we were there, I was like, oh, things are starting to rock and roll again. How's the event scene down in Austin right now? And how's the influx of all the people that are going to Austin? Is it annoying, or is everybody loving the fact that people are moving to Austin?
Oh, that's such a hard question.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. I mean, I think the most recent thing is that South by came back, this
Yeah.
year. And
Yep.
that was such a big deal for everybody, was so like happy, I think, to receive
Mhm.
it back, and I think it was a little bit smaller scale than what it had been in the past. But it was great to dip your toe in, and I felt like this year I didn't get to actually, we had several events during it. So I didn't get to attend a lot of like the formal South by outside of what we were actually doing. Um but I did feel like I saw a lot of folks engaging in creative thought, and a lot of
Mm,
local folks leading creative thought, which was really awesome to me, to witness. Because in the past, it was almost like I felt like, oh, these are like outside brands and outside people coming to Austin, where I felt like a lot of was generated within Austin this year.
cool.
So that made me feel really excited, really
Yeah.
hopeful for like what's
Mm,
next. I think people moving here, like the good part of it is that they're bringing their creative energy with them. And that is something that is, as an entrepreneur and as a creative, I enjoy that
yep.
part. And I think it keeps our city like moving and shaking and like really being such a hub for like possibilities,
Mm,
many possibilities, and that's wonderful. And I, at the same time, I feel like, it's hard. I've been trying to buy a house and I'm like, I don't even think I can buy a house in Austin right now. And it's not because like, oh, like like I didn't understand the struggle until I was in the struggle. And then you're like,
mhm.
oh my God, like it's super hard. Like houses are selling within a day or 2 days. It's a
Yeah.
full-time job, full-time job, and like who has like time or capacity, and I'm fortunate enough to not have to buy a house right now. Like I want to,
Yeah.
and there's like a rat race going on around it, so there's
Yeah.
a lot of like ups and downs and a lot of like critique of the city, which I understand and I empathize with. I agree with some of it, but I also, it's our city, the city I live in, it's
Mm,
a city that, I'm committed to right now, and I have to, uh, think about the good and the bad in the context of, like, wanting to create a world
yeah.
I live in.
Yeah. Well, we absolutely love it. I mean, the first time I went to Austin, I was like, wow, these are like the nicest people in the world. And I mean, I'm a New Yorker. I think my people in New York are nice, when you get to know them. But like even in Austin, it was just like we went down for a guys trip when there was like it was LSU playing Texas. and it was like 2:30 in the morning at the bars, and everyone's just so friendly. I was like, what? Why? Like, no, go in front of us. You can go. And I was like, what's happening here? Why is everybody so nice?
You're like, what's wrong? What's going on
Yeah,
here?
like, this is not, as a New Yorker, I'm ready for anything. And I was like, oh, I felt so comfortable and it felt so welcoming. And then of course, we went down to look at venues for Arte Agave, and then we were there for a week for Arte Agave, and I was just like, man, this is such. And Elena, who who runs our socials, she's like, oh, I've
She's
met.
wonderful.
She goes, I've been in New York for 10 years. I have like 3 friends. She goes, I've been in Austin for 3 days and I have 11 friends. She's like, I'm moving here.
It's true. It's true.
So I can see the attraction of Austin just because it's so friendly and so nice and such a fun space. And to your point, it's very welcoming. And that's at least what I got. It didn't matter who you were or what you were doing. It was just welcoming. And I think that's cool. And I think it's cool that you're creating a space within that space. Because I think it's needed. Like I said, I think it's needed for everyone to showcase who they are, if they're how well they're doing or how not well they're doing, and just create a community that's welcoming. And I think the more we do that, the more we're going to get along and get together. And I think we just got to turn off social media for half a second.
Oh my gosh.
Get together personally and just talk and have conversations. And I think if we could do more of that, if me and you can get together and create more of these spaces, I think the world is going to be a better place. So I appreciate you leading the way. And I look forward to working with you again at Arte Agave. And I'm sure we're going to do some more things together. And I think it's exciting. So congratulations on everything that you're doing and everything where you're going.
I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And thank you for your whole team, really. And Elena, love. I hope I'm not the list of 11 because she was so fun. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for the kind words and the encouragement too.
Of course. So where remind people of your I think you've got a couple Instagram handles, or if there's any website, just throw in any information to plug.
Yeah, you can find me at Las Ofrendas, at Frida Friday ATX, at Fuego ATX. I have a personal Instagram, just TK Tunches. You can find me on Facebook. We have a Frida Friday ATX .org website. And those are honestly, probably Instagram is the base. We have a TikTok, but I don't know anything about it. It's my daughter's deal. Like, I'm like, oh, I still don't even get it. I'm like, swipe off or what?
Yeah, just another layer of entrepreneurship that you have to learn. I try to pawn it off to the younger people I know for years, and I was like, okay, I got to actually start doing this.
Yeah.
And
It's
figure
cool,
it out.
It's like a little tiny opportunity to see what people are doing. So I enjoy that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, TK, I appreciate your time here, and I'm glad we got to make this work. And I look forward to working with you all at Arte Agave, and hopefully we can help support some more of events that you're doing down there. And I think it's cool. I love your entrepreneurship mind. I love your story, and I look forward to working with you all again.
Thank you so much for your time, and likewise. Have a great day today.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for listening.
Okay. Bye.